Friends, it's Diane, the Creative Inkster. I'm an Independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, and thank you for joining me. It is Monday. On Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I go live and do a case or a copy and share everything repeat a card that I have in my stash from previous. It may be one I created myself, and it may be one that I received as a swap card. And I find it fun to, in some cases, use different products within the same suite that it was originally done in, or completely different. And tonight's card is one of those. We're going to use the same dies, and you're going to see that this is just a little bit different card layout. It's not your standard card. Our standard cards are 4.5. Hi, Vicky. 4.25 by 5.5, and this is a slimline card. And this kind of card would fit in one of those usual business size envelopes that you would fold a piece of paper into threes and slide inside. And so it measures the card a finished size of 3.5 by 8.5. Now people do these in different ways. They make them a little bit different dimensions. I believe like a business envelope, you could probably get your card almost 4 inches wide, but this works out nicely. So this piece, when I started with it, was the height of 8.5 and the width of 7. So what I cut off over here was 8.5, 8.5 by 4. So that extra piece I can use for the inside or of another card or the front or that. So it certainly doesn't go to waste, but this kind of seemed like a good size to work with for me. All right, so this is the original card. Oh, and before I go further, I should say, please let me know, like Vicky has, that you're here watching live, or if you're catching the replay. I always like knowing who's been along for the ride for this week's video. And as I mentioned, we're going to use the Meadow dies. And this card, I believe, came from my friend Shauna McCulloch from Saskatchewan, from Moose Jaw, and I believe it came in a swap that way, and I really like it. It's the embossing folder is retired and this soft succulent's retired, but I've made a similar version just this week that uses more up-to-date products. Hi, Brenda. So we're using a different flower image from the dies, and in a moment I'm going to show you all the options for the dies. And it also uses the butterfly. I'm not sure if you can see the texture on the butterfly, but it does not need to be stamped. In fact, the stamp set that goes with it does not have a butterfly stamp that matches, but it has some texture on the wings. So I kind of look at these and think of these dies as perfect for a silhouette. Hi, Lynn. Thanks for stopping in. And I've used Blackberry Bliss, which almost looks like black on this one for sure. And I've added the greeting and the coordinating ink of Blackberry Bliss and 3 little squares. And that's just kind of to break it up, to give some height to it and give some dimension. Pop it up. All right, so let's take a look at the products we're going to use, and then we'll go over the measurements of everything, and we're going to make another card, like a similar one. All right, so in the annual catalog on page 164 at the bottom right are the Meadow dies. Now I have mine, but I have them out in sort of a all over the place kind of situation. But I do keep them in the sleeve and have them handy. So a beautiful set of dies that can be used totally independent from the stamp set. In fact, I don't own the stamp set. So I'm going to flip my catalog over to the page where the Quiet Meadow stamp set that matches it is page 66 in the annual catalog. And where you see something highlighted in white, those are the dies from the die set that match the stamp set. So there are 2 labels in the die set that match up directly with this. So this beautiful flower here does not have a coordinating die, neither does this one flower here. Now I don't have the stamp set. Personally, I really wanted to get the Meadow dies. They're $52 and they go through our mini as well as the regular Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So there's beautiful long stem So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different long stemmed floral arrangements, and I've used 2 or 3 on the same card in different colors. There are 2 versions of the butterfly, the open flat butterfly, which I used on the Blackberry Bliss version, this guy up here, and then there's sort of a half, like when the butterfly is sort of sitting on a stem, and I'm going to use that on tonight's card. There are the 2 tags that coordinate, and then there are these leaf pieces down here. So you get a lot in this set, I find, 13 dies. So that's that product, and we're going to use some card stock here. And on this one, I used from the online exclusives product, I used one of the basics embossing folders, but the one tonight we're going to use on my card is this one called Leaf Fall, which is kind of a weird name for it, I think, but anyway, the leaves that fall down, so you can see them there. So this embossing folder is 6 by 6, and this piece part over here does not have any embossing on it. So if you were to emboss a piece, you would have an open area, which is kind of a unique look as well. So we're going to use that for the little squares. So I'll go over all the measurements and all that with you. All right, let's put our 2 cards aside. Let's get out the products we're going to work with. So I am going to use for my card base Orchid Oasis, one of the in colors, and it measures 8.5 by 7. So I kind of mentioned that at the top of the video because it goes across 8.5, the usual size of a piece of cardstock, and over to 7. So I have a piece cut off that I can use for something else, which is 4 inches by 8.5. So that didn't go to waste. I've scored it in the middle at 3.5. So let's get the bone folder out and let's score this. All right, get a nice crisp fold, and it lands beautifully like that. Open it back up because we're going to do an inside piece. So our inside piece is basic white. Now, if I was wanting to go very vanilla, I could do that too. This piece measures 3.25 by 8.25, and that gives your nice 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I didn't do any stamping on the inside. I'm just going to glue this piece down. So now I've been away from my craft room for a week because if you followed me, you know I went to Vegas for a Stampin' Up! Leaders convention called Backstage. We have for Stampin' Up! Demonstrators on stage what used to be called center stage and backstage. Backstage is the leaders conference, and it was at the beautiful Red Rock Canyon resort in Las Vegas, way off the strip, with gorgeous views. I mean, that is just spectacular. Every morning I got up and had to look out, and every evening for the sunset, it was just fabulous. And so I'm back here, and I'm so glad to see that when I squeezed my glue, it actually came out. All right, so now we've got some layers to put on the front. So on the 2 here, you'll see there's quite a large layer. So it's going in about 5/8 of an inch, is that? Or no, whoops, half an inch. About half an inch in all the way around. So I cut this black piece, a mat, to 2 3/4 by 7 3/4. And we're going to put a white layer, which is going to be our base layer, on top of that with a little bit smaller size, 2 5/8 by 7 5/8. So I'll leave those there in case you want to take a screenshot of that. So that's just going to layer up like this. And I thought it would be nice to use black. It gives it a really nice pop of color on the Orchid Oasis. So we do need to do a bit of stamping. So let's get that done. The stamping I'm going to use is from Irresistible Blooms, and I'm going to use, that's what I used here for the thank you. I think the Thinking of You was done with the coordinating Meadow, Quiet Meadow stem set. So I've got a thank you. What else will fit? Hello, hooray, hooray, it's your day. It's kind of nice. Actually, you know what? I think I'll use hello, because I can put my greeting of happy birthday on the inside when I have hello. And it fits across here fairly nicely. Now, don't be concerned if you go to stamp on a nice big piece of paper like this and you're worried that it doesn't go straight down. You can't see for perfect placement. This happens sometimes at my ladies class in Breslau, and we get frustrated because we've got it on our layer of card, but it's a little crooked. So what we do is we stamp it again, punch it out, and just put a punched layer on top. That's not the plan, but that's certainly what can happen to cover it up if we need to. So we are going to do our best to stamp. I'm trying to find a piece of scrap here. Just want a piece. No, I must have tossed it out. I want to just kind of line this up. So I'm going to go down on my grid paper here and line up the bottom of the stamp, which is a little wiggly, but I'm going to line it up as if that is the straight edge to see if I'm going to end up making it straight across, or I need to adjust my stamping a little to the left or to the right. I think so far so good. Let's see if we can replicate that. So we'll line it up using the grid paper once again, and I can put it down about this far. Sometimes we see it evenly go down, and sometimes we make it a little bit off center or crooked, and that just seemed to turn out fine. That's all the stamping I need to do. Now this should dry right away, but it is a very dark color like Blackberry Bliss, so you just want to be careful and let it completely dry. And so let's add this on to the basic black. So I had thought about doing the card base in black and the Orchid Oasis underneath, but I kind of like this black because I want to do the black silhouette of the die cut. I'll pop this down. It has a really thin layer, about a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. Just a hint of color showing through on the mat. All right. And we're going to build on top of this layer, and then it's going to go onto the card front. I'm going to glue it onto the card front straight down, but I'm going to pop some of the other elements up. So we need to do a few things first before we're ready to add it all to the front. And I also was worried that I might not line these up straight or evenly, but I find that the die cut kind of hid any imperfections on me, which was really good. So for the die for this one, here's some more pieces for this card. I wanted to go with this one here, which is the one that was on the original card that I received. That's how it looks. And I wanted to do it in black, and I thought that maybe this would be a good use of my adhesive sheet to make it glue down, because if you die cut something quite thin out as this, you're going to try to get your liquid glue or your tape runner in the spots, and it's not going to go well. I find that this is a great use for adhesive sheets, and you've heard me talk about them if you watch my videos. Righto, so when I use adhesive sheets, I cut the sheet just a hair smaller than the cardstock I'm sticking it on. That's just so that the adhesive doesn't squeeze out onto my plates under my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and make them all messy. So to figure out what size I needed and not waste any, I just kind of put this down on my grid paper, figured out how wide it is, how tall it is, and came up with a piece of 1 3/4 by 4 1/2. So once we get the adhesive sheet on, we can cut it out. But I'll also be able to cut out one. In fact, if I wanted to, I could cut out 2 of this butterfly, or I could have moved it on its side and used the other butterfly a little bit. So 4 1/2 by 1 3/4 was perfect size for this. So we grab our adhesive sheet, which is double-sided tape, basically. Hi, Lise. Thanks for popping in. I hope you like this card. Here we go. We're going to peel the backing off. And you see the pink nails I have? They're pretty sparkly, right? That was for my trip to Vegas. I thought I'm going to be in Vegas, I'm going to get sparkly nails. Well, I don't wear nail polish on a regular basis. So this is like, it's still summer, but it's like still a bit bright and bold for me. All right, so this is the sticky side. I'm going to stick that down on my cardstock and just kind of have it fall just slightly within the black, if all goes according to Hoyle. Then you want to take your bone folder or an old credit card, which I keep handy here all the time for re-inking my ink pads. It's just always in my little toolkit. And you just want to press on here, and that's going to help transfer the adhesive. This piece I tore off the front is just like wax paper. There's nothing to this, that's just garbage. All right, pull the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in here into my tiny window of space. Let's tuck those out of the way. And I apologize, it will wiggle a little bit as it goes. So when you use dies, you're going to use your multi-purpose platform or your base platform, and then it is number 1. It's not a cutting surface. You do not want to cut directly into that. Then this is sort of a shim plate number 2, and then 2 plate number 3s. I guess one's got the number, wait a minute, there we go. 2 plate number 3s. So one you're going to cut into, and one just goes over top. And if you have a different type of cutting machine, then you're going to use whatever the sandwich is that you use for that. So we're going to stick, the sticky side goes down. You're cutting into the cardstock. Otherwise, you're going to end up with the sticky on the wrong side. And then we're just going to stick that little half butterfly on there, stick our number 3 over top, our second number 3 over top, and then slide this through. And sorry, as I said, it's going to wiggle a little bit because the camera's on the same table. And here we go with our pieces. I like doing a different card every once in a while, something that's not your standard card base. So this was a good choice. So let's pull our samples back in to see and get our die cuts out. So here we go, and they just cut like butter. Really nicely come out. So there's our silhouette, and that matches this one. And our little butterfly. Take him out too. And he has a little bit of embossing too, and we're just gonna, that's the look I'm going for there. So there's still some adhesive on this. I could still get a couple more butterflies or something out, so I'll probably stick that in with the dies, and then I have it handy. So we'll tuck those aside, pull back in the piece of white where we stamped our greeting hello, and we have 3 squares, and the squares measure 1.5 inch square. And I used, as I mentioned at the top of the video, the leaf fall. Hi, Jane. Thanks for popping in. The leaf fall. And, you know, if I was doing a whole layer, it would kind of maybe matter where I was going to have the blank spot. But with these little squares, I just put a piece of paper across, the 3 of them cut, and then just kind of put them across like that so that I would get some of the impression on all of them. Now, these are going to get popped up. And the best way to do that, I found, was to use the mini ones, because I could, the larger squares, the hexagon typical ones that we use, seemed to not give me as great coverage, and I want to actually put 6 on each. So I'm putting the debossed side up, 5 or 6. How am I going to make it fit here? Oh, I can fit 6. Just so they pop up nicely. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, well, let's go. That's good. And then this one, and I'm not worried about following a pattern. You could also, if you wanted, you could do a designer series papers. You know, whatever floats your boat, you do what you want to do. But the embossed look is really nice, and I did cut them first before I embossed the paper. I didn't want to squish it as it would go through my paper trimmer. All right. Oops, that one didn't come off. Here we go. All right, and so I'm going to sort of space these out, get a sort of an eyeball look for myself of where I want them to land. And I'm looking for a fairly thin bit in between. The goal was for this to land and mostly cover up the squares. Let's see, let's put that one like that. So it kind of, everything gets covered and you can still see a little bit of the white. That was the idea with this. And then I've got the little butterfly here, so I can probably move it down a bit. So this kind of gives me an idea of placement. Now looking it over, it might have been nice to do the greeting in black. but a little bit of Orchid Oasis. It's not an ink I use a lot of times, so it's kind of nice to pull it out. What's the inks that you don't use very often? Is there one that you're like, yeah, no, don't use that color often, not really my thing? We all have our favorites for sure. Okay, so that's fairly even. I'm going to keep my ruler kind of close. It's about 5/8 of an inch. Yeah, close enough. Once you lay the first one, then it's easier for placement for the others. When we used to have Pacific Point in the line and Blushing Bride, I'd say that they were the ones I used pretty much the least. I love all the neutrals for sure. And Blackberry Bliss is one that's quite dark, and I don't tend to. I loved Rich Raspberry, so kind of miss that color. But a stamped off version of Blackberry Bliss works really nicely too. So this way I've got about the same distance, the top and the bottom of the card. You could also have these on a sort of a diamond shape, or do circles, or do a punched shape. Whatever you have to work with is what works. What's going to work for your card. All right, so I'm going to stick my head over to sort of see how close I'm getting to even those out, but we're going to cover that up, so I'm not overly concerned about too much even placement. We can give ourselves a little break with that. And then this will fit on here, and then we'll pull this down. So each die that you use is going to determine a little bit differently. And then I know I have adhesive on this, but in the end I think I'm going to pop it up onto dimensionals. So pretty simple card, pretty simple layout. These would make beautiful swap cards, or like if you do shoebox swaps with your teams, if you're a demonstrator, or with friends, you get together and you each design a card. That's all a shoebox swap is you pack up the supplies, you get together, and you make each other's cards. And it's fun. We do it in our team more often lately. We've been just getting together and doing that. It's been kind of fun. I think, though, I will take the die off, the backing off of the, so if I'm looking at it from the side, I'm not going to see white showing through. Alrighty, here we go. So I have a little bit of a treat for you coming up, not imminently, but I am considering joining a group of tutorial demonstrators from around the world who get together and do a weekend event, much like for those of you on our Silver Sisters SSS Super Team event, but it'll be for my customers as well. And it's a 2-day event with presentations by different demonstrators around the world, totally free. It's on Facebook. You just have to join the group. And I'm considering being a part of that tutorial group and sharing that. So I would love to know your comments on whether you would attend something like that. You can log in whenever you want. You don't have to be there for, this hour and these hours. Don't use Parakeet Party, right? But yeah, if you want to let me know if you would like to attend something like that where you get free tutorial ideas. We show you how to use different products. All of them, I think the only requirement is that they be current product, which we can easily do. And I would love to know. That would help me decide that I want to do this. What am I going to do here? I don't really want any on this butterfly. It made sense on that butterfly, but not so much on this one. A little hair there, a little fluff ball. All right, let's put that there. Okay. I like odd numbers. They work out really nicely for cards. So that's it. Like, that is all there is to this card. Pretty simple and straightforward, but I really think it packs a wow. And thanks, Brenda, for weighing in on that. Oh, shoot, I didn't glue this down yet. Let's get that down in place. Now, I could pop this up as well, but I feel like I've got a lot of height on this to start. But how quick was that for making a card, right? Super simple and easy. Yeah, I'm going to be making a decision about participating in this international event, and met with some people in Vegas who do this, and sounded like it would be lots of fun to do. Let's get this somewhat straight. Let's try. Let's go for straight. Okay, there we go. Now it's glued down and in place. All right, that's my card for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Lise. I appreciate the feedback. And do let me know if you're watching the replay, what you think, and if you'd give this a try. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back on Wednesday. Take care. Bye now.